What's weird about this while we're approaching Qumran is the thought that I always assumed that everywhere around the Dead Sea was desert. And here we are still dealing with light drizzle now and again. We just got washed out right outside of Jericho. Our bus driver had to stop and replace his windshield wipers, which, considering that bus is a couple months old, according to him, I didn't know that windshield wipers had to be replaced that often. Indeed, Scott mentions that he's never seen rain around here, so yeah, what we're seeing right now is unusual in the extreme. Behind me are several of the caves of Qumran where, as the story goes, a shepherd boy was looking for his sheep, a Bedouin who couldn't read or write, but threw a stone into the cave as he was trying to find his sheep, and heard a crashing noise. Came into the cave because he was curious about what had made the noise, and proceeded to find jars of holding scrolls with text in them that he couldn't make out. After taking it to an antiquities dealer, I'd tell more of the story, but I think they'll do most of the details of it.
These CIs were a section which was very, very extreme. It actually turned it back on Jerusalem. It decided to leave Jerusalem and to move into the desert, believing that they are the only one who know the right way for salvation. They believed that the authorities or the priests in Jerusalem are corrupt and are going the wrong way and are emphasizing the wrong things. And so they decide to create these communities over here that are a little bit different than the Judaism we know. Today in Magdala we are going to see many more of them over here. Think about the fact that if we're usually talking about going to the mikveh or to the ritual bath once a month or even once a week, these people did it 2 or 3 times a day. Why? Because one of the professions that they had, they specialized in writing the Torah, writing the scriptures. In order to do that, before you begin, you have to be purified. You cannot just, put down your working tools when you come back from the field and go ahead and start writing. No, you have to stop. You have to purify yourself, and then only then you can start writing. So this is one thing about them. They were talking about the fact that the Dead Sea Scrolls were found over here, those same scrolls that were written by the cult of Yachad that lived over here. It was found by a Bedouin boy. The Bedouins live all over this area of the desert. And one day he was herding his sheep and one of them got lost, and he started to look around in the caves. Now when we will be driving to the south and you look to the Judea mountains, you're going to see that there are tons of caves all over the mountains, simply because these are karstic mountains, limestone, and therefore a lot of natural caves. He suddenly heard the sound of a sheep, and he went down to one of those caves, and inside he found a jar, a ceramic jar, that is actually shown over there. You'll be able to see it in a moment. It is long and narrow, and it was covered and sealed, and he was very curious. So he got out and called his father and brothers, and together they went down the cave again. And when they opened that jar, they found inside a scroll that they couldn't identify, they couldn't recognize. That scroll was the first Dead Sea Scroll ever found. They didn't know what it is, so they took it to an antiquity dealer in Bethlehem who identified it as part of the Jewish Bible. He could read the verses of the Jewish Bible. When they discovered the importance of this discovery, they began to look over the thousands of caves of this area, both the Bedouins and also the antiquity authorities. And many of those scrolls were recovered over here. Others that were found by the Bedouins were sadly torn to pieces, because when you sell a small piece, but many small pieces, you can earn much more money than selling one big scroll. So until today, they're still recovering pieces of the scrolls from all kinds of places in the world: Syria, Iran, Europe, America, that got all over the world. They're trying to bring them all back over here.
They tore them?
Yeah.
Oh, when they discovered them?
After discovering and after they realized that it is very, very valuable and they can earn a lot of money out of selling them. Where can we see the Dead Sea Scrolls? You're going to see a replica of it here in the museum, but the scrolls of the Dead Sea are kept in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. There's actually a place dedicated to them. It's called the Temple of the Book. It is shaped like these jars that they were found, and this is where they keep, they restore, and they show the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the most ancient Bible that was found, 2,000 years old, okay, from the 1st and the 2nd century.
BC, right?
BC and AD, actually, both. They leave Jerusalem, AD. They leave Jerusalem during the time of the revolt, or just before the revolt, and then they live here in this area. They themselves, among the scrolls that were found over here, we found the scrolls of the book of Isaiah, and the book of Jeremiah, and the book of Numbers. We have most of the Bible found over here, but we also found several books or several scrolls that describe their life, okay? The rules of this cult, the rules of this place, they describe the day-to-day life, they describe the chores that they have, and what they must do every day. A second source of information is Josephus Flavius, that gives us so much information about his times around here. And the third one is archaeology. When they excavated this place, they found cutlery, they found vases, they found the ritual vases, they found a lot of remains of date seeds that were used over here not only for food. When I was riding in the bus with one of the groups, I was telling them that the dates, or the seeds of the dates, were used as well. We used to press them and crush them and produce oil. Okay? That oil was used for illumination. Where? In the houses, or also here when they needed to write the scriptures at night. They needed light, and so the candles that they used the palm tree seeds oil. According to the number of the plates and day-to-day artifacts that were found over here, the archaeologists assumed that about 200 to 250 people lived over here during the 1st century. Okay, how come they survived over here? We have to remember that here in the desert we have the perfect preservation condition. It is both dry and hot. An organic material like the one used for the scrolls is going to be preserved perfectly for so many years. Very similar to what's going on in Egypt. Okay, why do we find so many things in Egypt? Because it's hot and it's dry. It doesn't decay as fast as it does in wet and cold places.
The Essenes, a monastic group of Jews who made Qumran their home, had a tradition of bathing twice a day, in fact, and so these mikvahs are all over the settlement. Mostly this is because they were working out in the fields by day and then studying and copying the scriptures in the evenings. So they needed not only to wash off the dust and dirt and sweat of the day, but also to purify themselves in order to write about the holy word of God and to handle it properly. Now it does beg the question that being out in the desert like this, where would they get the water to wash with every day? And in fact twice a day as a general rule. To be honest, part of this has to do not so much with the rainfall that we're getting here right now, because that is a rare occurrence, but the rain that comes from that flows from places further up, such as in Jerusalem. When it rains in Jerusalem, it runs down the mountains into every crevice as water seeks its own level on the way down to the Dead Sea. And the dry soil here simply allows it to course on through rather than being absorbed. While that also renders the area susceptible to flash flooding if it can be controlled and directed, which they, with the Essenes, did. They managed to get it directed into cisterns where they would filter the dirt that it would pick up and become pure water for them to wash, to cook in, and to purify themselves with.
When they are describing themselves, they are calling themselves the sons of light. And everyone else are called the sons of darkness. Does that sound familiar to you guys? The only other place from the more or less same period that we hear a similar word or a similar use of word like that is the New Testament, the Revelation, okay? So it's not, this is something very, very significant. How come there's such similarity in the terms that they're using? We know that John was in this area. We know that he was preaching against the priests in Jerusalem, okay? He was preaching for purity, for honesty. So there is a common ground over here. There is a reason to believe that maybe John was living over here during the trial period before joining the cult of Yahad, and sometime around that period he decided to leave, not to complete his years over here, but he was influenced from them. One other thing that they found in common is the fact that he was baptizing people, Jewish people, okay? And these people were all about baptism, okay? 2-3 times a day. So you can see that, okay, it's something to think about, okay? It's not pulled out of your hair. I mean, okay, it's logical. Whether or not he was really here, I cannot tell you. I don't know. Okay, there's no actual evidence or testimonies that place him specifically over here.
Qumran isn't exactly a small little village as represented by the archaeological dig site. There are caves that extend in this direction 4 miles. Now, not every one of them was stuffed with clay jars containing scrolls. Some of them had clay jars, some of them were empty, and some of them, the caves didn't have anything in them to begin with, but many of them did. But there were many scrolls being found, which included documentation of daily life as an Essene, but also various scripture, such as Isaiah, Daniel, several books that weren't actually canonized in the Bible that we use, but have their representation in the Apocrypha. Now, I don't know if that means that we'd have to change the scriptures now, but it does confirm that these did date back from the time of Christ, or thereabouts. Why is this important? Other than the fact that it's an enormous archaeological find? Well, among other things, up until recently, there were those that believed that Isaiah predicted Christ so accurately, it must have been written after Christ. And until the mid-20th century, there was nothing to prove otherwise. With the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, there were fragments of the book of Isaiah. In fact, the entire one has been collected in various forms, thereby indicating there was no deutero-Isaiah, as I think some have called it. It's all one writer, and it dates from the time of Christ and before. So these predictions were exactly that, predictions, prophecies, and the accuracy that they have is legitimate.